Hey everyone, today we're going to discuss about invalid arguments or fallacies. So, unlike with the proving part that we just had in our rules of equivalences and the rules of inferences, these statements that I'll be presenting you today would be invalid arguments or fallacies. These are errors, or should we say, these are false statements. These are not used in proving, but these are used to detect whether a logical reasoning is incorrect using these fallacies. So we have the first one, the fallacy of the converse. We have the statement P implies Q and Q is true. Then if we say that P is true, then it is a fallacy. It's a false statement. Let's say that if I bring an umbrella, if it rains today, then I will bring an umbrella. That's our P implies Q. If I bring an umbrella, that doesn't necessarily mean that it rains, right? So this is that's an example of a fallacy of a converse. Just because I brought an umbrella doesn't mean that it will automatically rain. For our second fallacy, we have what they call the fallacy of the inverse. P implies Q, then that is P implies Q is true, and not P is also true. This means that saying that not Q is true is a fallacy. Just because the statement is the antecedent is false doesn't necessarily equate that the consequent is also false, since in a conditional statement, false true is still true, while false false is still true. In our previous example, if it rains today, then I will bring an umbrella. If it doesn't rain, then if I bring an umbrella, that doesn't matter, right? Because I can still bring an umbrella, or I can just leave my umbrella at home, and this statement is still true because the condition only works when P is true, when it rains. So P implies Q again. If P is false, then Q is not, it doesn't matter if Q is true or false. So if you say that P is false, then Q must also be false, then we are committing the fallacy of the inverse. For the second one, it's the misuse of the disjunctive reasoning. P or Q is true and P is true. So if we say that not Q is true, meaning Q is false, then we are committing the misuse of a disjunctive reasoning. Since remember that in a disjunction, either one of them is true. P is true, Q is false, the statement is true. But if P is true and Q is true, the statement is also true. If P is true, it doesn't necessarily mean that Q is automatically false. Like for example, I said that I will study or I will do my chores. If I study, it doesn't necessarily mean that I will not do my chores already, because I can study and I can do my chores as well, because since this is an or statement, I will study or I will do my chores, meaning I can do both of them. If I do one of them, it doesn't necessarily mean that I did not do the second one. If we assume that we did not do the second one just because we did the first one, we are committing the misuse of disjunctive reasoning. And for the fourth one, we have the misuse of transitive reasoning. P implies Q and Q implies P. So that's the two true statements that we have. Normally, we can use hypothetical syllogism to say that P implies R, right? Like transitive property. But if we assume that the reverse is true, R implies P, that is a false statement. It is a misuse of a transitive reasoning. In the same manner, if we imply that not P implies not R, that is also a false statement. We are committing the misuse of a transitive reasoning. So let us just observe that this stems from the hypothetical syllogism. So these are the four invalid arguments or fallacies. So we can analyze statements that were given to us and determine if it's true or false. And we can immediately, since we've already discussed how to prove whether a statement is true, these statements naman can tell us whether a statement is false. then we know that it's false if it committed a fallacy. So if we have four: the fallacy of the converse, fallacy of the inverse, misuse of disjunctive reasoning, and the misuse of transitive reasoning. So there, so that's everything about the fallacies, and that's actually everything about the logic for in our semester. So in our next video, we're going to have random variables. So I hope you guys learned a lot today. Thank you guys for watching, and see you guys at the next video.